Do soap operas still have a place in our current media landscape? I read this really good article the other day by Yasmin Riffo for the BBC about watching soap operas for the first time as an adult, and she came to the conclusion that she wouldn't be watching any of them after that week, which is fair enough. But is it fair to write off all soaps as old and outdated and not made for this current climate of TV? Hello and welcome to Lights Candle Action, where today we'll be discussing the importance of soap operas and why I think they've fallen to the wayside but are still an incredibly valuable piece of media. So, one reason I think soaps get quite a bad reputation is because of their lack of a true set ending. Ruffo said as much in her article. Despite frequently watching shows with long seasons, she struggled with the lack of cathartic ending for all of the soaps and doesn't mind a series having multiple episodes, but has to know that all storylines will eventually be resolved. I think this is a bizarre way of looking at it. So, for one thing, her examples of long shows that she watched growing up aren't similar to soaps at all, mainly because they feature a definite endpoint. You get certain 100% closure. The season ends, and that is the end of the arc, and there might be a couple things carried over, but there is a definite, like, this is the end of this storyline, no more, full stop, line under it. And it might just be because I grew up with soaps and other shows that run for like 50 years with no defined end point. But to me, the lack of closure is kind of the point. They can tell you that Robert Sugden's gone to jail for life, but that doesn't mean he 100% will never show up at his ex-husband's wedding. They can tell me all they want that David Hyde quit Holby City Hospital and has moved on, but that's not going to stop me Googling whether he'll return every single time there's like a slight change in nursing staff. The lack of true ending is the point of the show and it's the best part of the show. If you love a storyline or a character or a relationship, it's never 100% certain that you'll never see it again. But on the other hand, if you really hate something, people disappear dead fast in these shows. There's a high storyline turnover because of this complete lack of closure. It hits this ideal balance. Also, kind of lumped in with this point is the inability to binge watch a soap. You can technically binge watch all of Corrie and Emmerdale by starting with episode one and going through to the episodes that are currently being released. But why the fuck would you? That is insane. Instead, you get a specific number of episodes a week, and that's it. Emmerdale, for example, this video is going to reference Emmerdale a lot because it's the soap I watch. I respect Corrie and EastEnders, they're just not, they don't hold the same place in my heart as my silly little Yorkshire village. Um, so Emmerdale, you get three, no, you get four half an hour episodes and an hour long episode a week, and that is it. You want more? Tough shit. You're gonna have to come back next week. You're really enjoying this plotline and hate the note they've left it on. Gonna have to tune in tomorrow and find out how it ends. And if that episode was on Friday, well, you're gonna have to wait till Monday. And even then, it's not guaranteed that that plotline will be brought up in the next episode. You can have a little bit of a gap because there's so many characters. They can just fuck off and do something else for a bit while you're left wondering what is going to happen next with this plotline. There's no way to skip ahead. There's no way to sit down and watch an entire plotline in one night unless it's an old plotline. And in today's world, where 70% of viewers prefer binge watching multiple shows over the traditional scheduled TV, it almost feels like a flex to be able to turn around and say that you have the attention span for weeks of Dingle family drama for it finally to all come to a head. When, as Ruffo put it, a character reappears years later or someone's brother's cousin's daughter from 5 years ago starts bringing up the drama again, it's not a punishment. It's a reward for sticking around or an excuse to pause the telly and get explained to your mum how all of this makes sense, of which only half the details will actually be relevant to what's happening. It's not a punishment that there's no real conclusion. That's the point. There's no real conclusion in your real life. There is never a point where you can fully 100% put a pin in one part of your life and go, that is it, that is that part over, we're moving on to the next thing. It all links together. That is the point of soap operas. Similarly, there's a really high upfront cost of attention to get into these shows. So Ruffo does admit that she's jumping in decades after they first aired with no prior knowledge, so naturally it's harder to build a connection with the characters. I don't think that's necessarily true though. So, I mean, it is true she's jumping in decades after they first aired, but there's an expectation in the modern age of TV that all the information will just be handed to you in one go right off the start. With Ruffo's comment about how there was no scene setting and I was just thrust straight into the middle of some passive aggressive arguing in all three shows, giving us a shining example. But again, these shows are deliberately made to feel like real life, so why would they set the scene perfectly? Have you ever had an argument in a perfectly set scene? What about the links between the characters? I don't know how half of my extended family is related to me, let alone how the Dingles keep track. It's again a reward. You do a little bit of digging and a little bit of chatting to people, and you find out some fantastically bizarre backstory, or you sit and wait, and everything you need to know gets explained to you eventually. There is always a character there who is finding out this stuff for the first time. Take, for example, Lewis on Emmerdale at the moment, right? I had never seen the episodes of Emmerdale where Moira and Ross's mum had their whole argument and Ross's mum died, right? I was not watching at that time, so I had no clue what's going on. Lewis is pretty much the shining example of Ruffo's brother's cousin's daughter from 5 years ago dragging up the drama again. But because he's finding out this stuff for the first time, me sitting in the audience finding it out for the first time is getting it explained to me as much as I need it to, right? I don't need to have seen the storyline play out for it to make sense that that has happened and we have moved on. In a world of season by season, here's what you missed on shows, it makes sense that people struggle to wrap their heads around shows that start too abruptly and then struggle to build connection with the characters. It makes sense, but I don't think that's an entirely fair criticism. Yes, it can be hard to pick it up as you go, especially if you're used to being handed all the information you need. But you have to try. Pay that cost of attention and you'll be hooked. She captioned an image talking about trying to keep up with 36 years of soap opera marriage drama. But you don't need to know that stuff. You just need to know what's happening now. Kill the nerd in your head who says that you have to have an encyclopedic knowledge of every show you enjoy and just have some fun with it. My last point, and perhaps the most crucial point to me, is because of the death of empathy in the social media age. Can you imagine the worst moment of your life being filmed, farmed for clicks and views, and viral over social media to the point that it's mentioned in an entirely irrelevant BBC article? Because I can't. But you can't convince Ruffo that watching a man run along the beach howling after learning about his partner's infidelity doesn't make for more engaging TV than a couple shouting fake insults at each other in the laundrette. A real person's pain shouldn't be your idea of good TV. So I couldn't find the clip in question, but Jesus fucking Christ. And look, I understand. I try to understand your inability to suspend your belief around the basic things happening in soap operas. They do have jobs, Yasmin. You frequently, at least in Emmerdale, see them working. That's part of the drama. But if you can't empathise with fictional characters for a couple hours of your week, and you need to watch a man's life be destroyed for any semblance of entertainment, then I don't know what to say. Good luck, I guess. It feels very similar to another comment made by the article that, in comparison to shows such as Sex Education, Euphoria, and Top Boy, which resonate with younger audiences by addressing themes like mental health, identity, and social justice in a way that feels authentic and visually compelling, the teenage angst of characters like Betty and Max in Coronation Street feel unrealistic. I wholeheartedly disagree. One, because of the longevity of the characters in these shows, you actually give a shit. Like, You're having, you've seen the drama happen with their dad. You, some of these characters you've watched grow up since they were kids. I only started watching Emmerdale recently, so I can't really speak for the Emmerdale kids in this. But Grace came back to Casualty a few years back, and I felt such like a sibling bond with her because she's the same age as me. She, little 8-year-old Grace, was involved in drama. She has that backstory. So when she's going through the teenage angst, I can turn around and be like, but I know her. She's not like that. She's my friend. It's almost parasocial because it feels like you know this whole family because you grew up watching them. Casualty actually does it really well, or at least used to do it really well with the kind of teenage children of main characters. You felt like a real connection to them because of the longevity of the show and because you know what their parents have gone through. You can see all the sides of the argument. Two, you don't fucking speak for me, Yasmin Rufo. Some teenagers with cringy parents running around middle of nowhere UK with weird accents will always be 100 times more relatable and authentic than some American adults in a costume pretending to represent the real teenage experience. And I don't think I'm alone in that. You see the complaints about Euphoria. Like you brought Euphoria up, so it's a fair point to make. That's not what teenagehood is like for most people. Most people I know, the drama they're experiencing is a lot closer to Emmerdale stuff of like, yes, my mum is fucking insane, or like, yes, my dad is cringy. Like, because because they are played by teenagers, it is more authentic and more relatable inherently because that is a teenager in that situation, not an adult. Three, you vastly underestimate how important soap plot lines are to real people. So I mentioned in my last video on AI and media that soaps like Emmerdale are a meta discourse of real. And this really stands here as well. People go into your professionally polished streaming services shows with an air of disbelief because they are so polished and perfect, and no one's life looks like that. People go into shows like Emmerdale, EastEnders, and Corrie expecting a slice of life because that is what they function as, that's what they present themselves as. So, on that front, I will take 100 awkward, weird, not perfect slices of LGBT representation that function as normal people and introduce the idea that normal life includes LGBT people over one perfectly written, polished, airbrushed LGBT character on a show normally watched by people who already consider themselves woke, right? Because one of those examples would be watched by my grandparents who struggle to understand the concept of trans people, or by a 6-year-old struggling with the idea that someone's parents can be gay. One, I think the professionally polished one won't be because of the target audience. I know that's kind of a point you were making, that soaps don't appeal to the younger audience over shows like this, but part of that is the appeal. Part of the appeal for characters like Robert and Aaron is the fact that, yes, they are a gay couple, and also they are going through so much drama anyway. The drama at the moment is unrelated to them being gay, right? The, the point of characters like David again in Casualty was not, he's not a perfect representation of mental illness. He's an accurate one because he's just a guy who's trying his best. And that is so much more powerful than if it had tried to be the perfect Twitter ready representation of mental illness. The messiness is the point, Yasmin. And on that weirdly personal note, I'd like to end the video with one final thought. In this age of instant, polished, and brand new entertainment ready at your fingertips, maybe take a minute to try out a slower classic. It might change your mind. Or not, and that's okay. But at least then you get to know who Robert Sugden is. This has been Lights Campbell Action, and this has also been the most fun I've had writing and filming a video so far on the channel. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it half as much as I did. Please like and subscribe, leave comments. Any interaction would be amazing. And thanks for watching. Have a lovely day.